Howdy, everybody. Thanks for tuning in for another clicker training with Mackenzie, McCall, and the Divas. I'm here with my friend Gertie. Over there is McCall and Maud. And today we're just going to do a quick tutorial on, yes, a cool behavior that can help animals stay in place if you need them to stay in a position for a little while. We're just going to do the basics of it today, but it can go pretty far up. You use it all for all sorts of stuff, teaching them to groom. In a pinch, you can use it to, yes, help them, stay somewhere while you go do something else. Some people call this behavior stay, also call it stationing. Yes, it's a foot target behavior. Yes.
Matt.
Okay. And it's just really handy for all sorts of different scenarios, but it's a good one to start out with and be teaching.
Matt.
If you tuned in the last few weeks, yes, alongside our other behaviors of targeting and of just general good, yes, manners around food. This is a good elementary behavior to start early. Okay. Yes. So we're going to demonstrate that. McCall's going to be playing it over there with Maud a little bit, and I'll be playing it with Gertie. And we'll just start with the basics and then build up from there. So behavior we probably didn't start early enough on these two with. Kind of wish we would have. Yes, good one. Somebody found a target. That was pretty cool. When this behavior is done well, they learn to just be really excited and wait for a release cue to know when to come off.
Matt.
That's the part that you have to be really careful about early on. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But our very first step.
Okay.
Hi. Can you leave it? Thank you. Okay, let's go. Is to make it a really positive thing. So, of course, if you're training some donkeys and they're at all nervous about it at first, you want to step back a bit and just get them used to it. But I'm not going to cover that today. Yes. But don't just expect that they'll be comfortable stepping on it like these two are. So our very first step is, yes, just getting them going to it and high rate of reinforcement, yes, for ideally 2 hoofs on. Gertie's picked up wanting to stomp it. Yes. And you can feed on top of it. Yes. If your mat's big enough, and that makes it a little bit hard for them to, yes. Because it can be a little difficult for them to eat right where their feet are sometimes, I've noticed. And if your mat's smaller like ours, yes, that can be tricky.
Okay.
You can just feed to their mouth so long as they're good about taking food. Yes. And then we're really quickly just high rate of reinforcement. Yes. Getting them used to the idea that, like, I'm moving around a little bit. Yes. And they're just standing there. Okay. And then we want to make it really clear. Okay. And then you can just wait for movement off of it.
Matt.
She's like, And yes, I cheated a little bit there, giving her some, like a visual cue to move away. You want to fade that as quickly as possible if you do it. You don't want to be relying on that. And you can wait. Instead, you should wait and just watch for them naturally move off it. Pair that with the behavior. So I'm just trying to make it fun. So I'm moving it around. Doesn't know quite when it's going to go down. And then the moment it goes down, I'm looking for her to walk up to it. She's just, we haven't worked on this much recently, so she's a little, she lost it, but see if she thinks to do it. Yes. And I can reinforce her for just taking a step that way at first. You know, it doesn't have to be anything. Oh no, was there a treat under there? It go underneath. That was very smart. Yes. And I'm looking for, again, 2 paws on. Yes. And she's like, look, they're on there. I'd like to get rid of that stomp as much as possible. So yes, I'm trying to reinforce when she stops. Yes. And then get a lot of reinforcement in before she hits it again. Yes. And it's just really important to, as soon as they hit it, get several reinforcements with them on before they come back off. Yes. So stacking the weight of reinforcement on. Yes. Maybe try feeding her to her mouth so her feet aren't dancing around so much. Yes. And then really clearly, okay. Again, you see me. Moment. Yes. Those feet are off.
Okay.
Give her a couple treats away. I'm going to take it. I don't want this to be the most exciting behavior, but I do want her to be, yes, having fun finding it. Yes. Yes. And I'm doing a lot of fast marking and reinforcing. Yes. Just try and stay ahead of that stop.
Okay.
Now I can do a little bit. Oh, no, I can't. Oh, that was softer. Yes. 1, 2, 3. Yes. So I'm building in duration. 1, 2, 3. Yes. 1, 2. Yes. This is it begins fast and furious. Yes. Got one stomp in there, unfortunately. Yes.
2 feet?
That was so silly. Yes. Yes. Trying to get her used to different distance. Okay.
Back up.
See what she does.
You can do it. We gotta fix this. Here.
I should probably start pairing. The release cue with actually coming off of it. She said, it's like, no, I definitely have to stay. Yes. Good job. So this next time I'm going to try and reinforce her mark for the moment that she actually steps off. Let's see how we do.
Okay.
So we got a lot of enthusiasm to find it. It's great. And also, like, you'll notice we stopped right at the edge of it. I want to see the stepping
Fist
on.
bump.
It's good.
All right,
One
come on,
more
let's go eat
foot.
some more
Yes, nailed it.
Mod.
Really good. I'm feeding from different positions. Yes.
Oops.
Are you coming to see what we're up to? Here you go. Yes. So, no stomping. That's great. You know, if I wanted to build up, yes, staying while I touch, I'd do something like that. Probably be good to build in just a consent for a touch. Yes. Maud, are you training with Gertie right now? She's like,
So patient now. Mod.
yes. Great. And now I'm going to try and capture, just waiting for Maud's a good distraction, but I got to reinforce more because of it. Go with my call.
Fist bump.
I was like, I want some Mackenzie training time. We should switch. You're ready for a switch? Go get her. Yes.
Mod.
You're doing really good. I'm very impressed with you right now. You're doing so great.
Come on. Let's go.
So, because we had a bigger distraction, I upped my rate of reinforcement even more.
Matt.
And now I'm just looking to pair the release cue with the step off. So, as soon as she goes to step off, I'm going to say the word. She's like, oh, it's definitely stomping time. Yes, I missed it. Here you go. Take it. There's a few different games you can play to really build that release cue in. Let me just stomp that a bunch. Here you go. But I would start and make sure that I get a lot of reinforcement on the actual hitting the mat. Then we can build. Yes.
Mod mat.
Yes. So let's do 2 for being on the mat. And now I'm going to try and pair the release cue with stepping off the mat. Okay. Yes. And then get her right back on the mat. Yes.
Okay.
I'm going to try and pair one more time, and then I'll see if I can use... Okay. Yes. Good job. Right back on the mat. And this time I'm going to try and anticipate it.
Let's move it.
With... Okay. Yes. See that? That was really good. She just walked right off when she heard the release cue. I in jackpot.
2 feet.
And I'm going to just try and build the whole thing with really low duration on it. So the behavior gets a little bit stronger. Just get 1 or 2 of those. So as soon as she gets too close on, I'll give her
Back
like
up.
1 second on there and then release. You don't want to keep going just with this game, but if they're struggling with the kind of like release cue part. Okay. Yes. It's a good way to build up the understanding of the difference between when they walk off and when they don't. But you got to do it fast. And it's way better to have build more duration. So the only reason I can like out of actually standing on there. Good. So she's on it now. Okay. Yes. Now the next time I work on this, I'd work a lot on backing up, reinforcing, then release cue. Maybe I'll do one of those and then we'll call it a day. Matt. Yes. So I'm marking for that. Back up.
Back up.
Yes. Back up. Yes. Back up. Yes. Release cue.
Okay.
Okay. Just so that, yes, the backing up doesn't become the release cue because I'm kind of using that to bridge and get some captures.
Matt.
Good job, you. All right. I think that's pretty much a good start for stationing behaviors. It's really a great thing to build up with any equine so that you have a good foundation of standing in place, and eventually you can put a cue to the actual going and standing place. You can also fade the mat and just have it be a stay behavior or station or whatever you want to call it. How'd it go with Maud?
It went pretty well. She also really likes to stomp the mat.
Yeah.
So I was working on shaping her, not stomping it, rewarding her the second she got her feet on so she didn't have any time to think about it and stomp.
Yes.
And she doesn't seem to strongly connect the release cue yet.
Yeah, I think they both need some release cue work. Can you give me a few more apples and carrots?
Yeah.
Well, that's good. I think this is definitely one of their least best behaviors, so it's kind of fun to see, but we have worked on it a bit, so do kind of, if you're working with your own donkeys, you definitely want to, make really short, fun sessions with each one of those.
Back up.
Catch.
Can you do it? Come on.
You pick it up. Bring it. With each one of those behaviors. Oh, you forgot to bring it to me.
Back up.
Go get it.
Oh, you just really don't want to back up.
I could really use that. I could use a donkey who brought me that ball. All right, everybody. Well, thanks for tuning in to some donkey training tips. Well, thank you. Yes. And we'll be right back with a little bit more with Canner. We're going to do some grooming. Huh. You want to keep going? You want to keep training? Yes. Our friend Maud is here. Here you go, Gertz. Come on. Let's all go back.
Some treats to find.
Pretty windy out on the side. Yeah. Hopefully you can hear us okay. I'm going to try and stand with my back to it, but I think a good wind. That might make him a little bit more nervous. We'll see. We'll let him snack a little bit. Just got to eat your dinner, huh? Yeah. Well, here we are with my horse Canner. Still don't have a good transition. If you've been tuning in the last several weeks, yeah, you want to do some pets? All right. Because yeah, I'm Canner. Oh, and are we doing something for the camera right now? Okay, I'll step away from my dinner. You'll have heard a little bit about his story. He's a rescue horse who, you better go snack some more. It's like, you mean snack on McCall? Sure. He's a rescue horse who I saved from getting put down a while ago. He's been out at the ranch now. You want some more pets? All right, I'll get you some pets. And he's been at the ranch for, since 2012. So we're talking about coming up on 9 years, I think, this year. Good chunk of time. And he's just a much more comfortable horse than he used to be, although you can still see kind of his fearfulness sometimes. But just that, the remarkable thing of, it's remarkable that he's, eager to seek out petting. Oh, I got it.
Okay.
And do some demo with this. Because he was so fearful at first of people, anything we had, and you know, he wouldn't even let like me or anybody else walk up to him. He'd turn and run away. If you tried to touch him, he would turn and run away if you had managed to get that close when I first met him. And it took a long time to get him to the point where he actively was comfortable getting petted at all, touched at all. And the way that I did that at first was across the fence, because he was just so explosive. It wasn't really safe to work in the same area as him on touching, and we started playing this game. He says, McCall, you could pet me too, which is I'd present an object, and then he would nose it, because he was still pretty curious, although he was fearful. And then if he nosed it, I'd touch him, just really nice and easy, yes. And he always had the opportunity to walk away, run away, or whatever he wanted to do, yes. I always made sure there was space for him. He was completely at liberty, completely off lead, loose, in a pasture. And I just would reinforce him anytime that he did it. Ahead of that, I'd already created a relationship with a marker and reinforcement. Schnack. It's like, I'll schnack some more. But it took a long time, but eventually he got to the point where, you know, he likes petting, and it is rewarding enough that he'll do it. Leave it. Yes. Watch his body language there, McCall, because he's backing from you, and
It is windy, huh, bud?
yeah, it's windy. So he definitely, if he eases off of people and they continue to pet him, he doesn't trust them as much with petting from there on out. So if he's backing up or wants to get away and people keep moving towards him.
Check.
Do you want some pets? He also has the ability to re-engage, and it's just nice to like do a few pets and then let him say that he wants some more. So we had to work on that. First, I used just like a long pole, and we just worked on touch and pet, which I'll demonstrate with a target stick here now. You want to play a little bit of this? Yeah. You can play a little petting while I grab the target stick.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's do some of this and stop with the brush. So the very first touching game that we played with him, he would touch it like that, and then it'd just be monster, yes. So nice touch to the side. Good job. And then he'd get a lot of reinforcement. At the time, it was just grass. And I actually at first had to leave it where he could eat it. Oh, there's a baldy. There's 2 baldies over there.
Oh, beautiful.
Leave it. Monster. Yes.
Oh, there's 3 baldies.
3 baldies. Wow. Boy. Probably should get that action going. Cool. It seems a little early for them. Monster. Yes. And if he could just sit there, he would get reinforced. You know, also he could walk away and stop playing the game. And he knows that if he doesn't touch it, I won't touch him back. You know, yes. So we very slowly moved from that to doing more parts of his body. Yes. And he learned how to relax doing that. Once that was good, then I just started playing the game with my hand and I didn't start right away with my hand, yes, because he had such a negative association with hands. And like me taking my hand out of my pocket was really scary. And so it gave him some distance from me, and like me being closer and going to touch him was a very scary thing for him at first, yes. But now you can see, we just played that game with him. He'll not always, but he often wants to get petted and will just do it indefinitely for no reinforcement for a long period of time. And you can do all sorts of different behaviors. But that was the foundation. That's where we built up from to get to here. Yes. And if people don't respect his boundaries, a lot of times he'll test out the game with them right away. And if they don't know how to play it, he won't engage with them in petting, which is great because I don't want people who don't pick up on him shying from them being in close proximity to him. I don't think it's safe, and it's not great for the work that he's already done. So yes, the other cool things, since starting with that target, you can do a little bit of petting with him. We've built up, he's gotten very good with the brush. He now lets me routinely handle all 4 of his feet. That took a little while. I didn't quite trust those back feet because he was so prone to spooking. But it all built off of that game, and we started it, and then we built it into other objects. I also used that game to give him shots, so he could, we played a little game where he would touch the needle, and I would tap his shoulder, touch the needle, tap his shoulder, and then on one of the taps, I just put the needle in, and we gave him shots, stuff like that. And now, I'm very excited about his toothbrushing game, which to me is, this is also the game with which a modified version of it built in, like, his comfort level, getting his feet touched, getting brushed and combed in different places, but also he had really bad tangles and mats in his hair when I first met him, so I had to very slowly, over the course of like 6 months, use this game to cut those out. Took a long time, but we got him cleaned up. That was good. And because we took it slow and easy now, I can just untangle his hair all the time. We can play and do all sorts of different stuff with him. But now it's also the same game that we're using to teach him to have his teeth brushed. I'm going to clean off this toothbrush a little bit. And because he was so hard to handle, there was kind of like the benefit of he didn't seem like he had probably gotten much grooming before. So it's not nearly as poisoned as something like his halter, which I talked a little bit about last time, is. So he doesn't have as negative associations with it. And he can really come. And I'd say in grooming terms, you know, he's not exactly like what I would expect a horse who hadn't gone through the kind of traumas that he has to be like, but he's pretty good. And he'll hang out to get groomed, get his seat taken care of, all sorts of stuff, and without being tied. And he's good about it, safe. I can do it in the middle of the field, so long as the other horses aren't pushing in too much, of course. That gets him a little bit. All right, let's see if we can do a little toothbrush.
Okay.
You want to get your teeth brushed? He says, yeah. Okay, so he gets to say yes. We do a little brushing. Yes. And then Mark can reinforce. Oh, Gertie wants to have her, or Maud wants to have their teeth brushed, one of them. One more toothbrush action? Okay. This is fun behavior, but it's also, we're building up to giving him like some good toothbrushing. And his teeth are actually looking a little, yes, it's definitely having an effect. We haven't really introduced any sort of toothpaste or anything yet, but is that good? Yeah. Oh, it feels just so nice. Yeah. And he can chew on it a little bit. That's fine. Bite. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Get those teeth. And you can see, like, we can actually go at this point pretty long amount between reinforcement with him. Yeah. Right there. Is that a good spot? Get those zoobs. Look at those zoobs. Can I get the front zoobs?
It is like incredibly funny looking and adorable how he wiggles his nose in enjoyment while baring his teeth to let you brush them.
Very good zooby treatment there. So that was a good little session. I'm going to go clean it off again. We'll do a little more. Excuse me. Are you coming with? You want some water? Did you want some water? You should take a drink if you want it. He's like, I don't know. I'll brush my teeth over here next to my water. And do some of these. Oh yeah, get this one. That tooth needs it. Yes. Been trying to get this lower tooth pretty good for a while. He's still got, he's like, yeah, let's do some more teeth brushing. I'll just hold these. You're silly. Another good thing to do with any sort of grooming behavior is to practice with multiple people. Do you want to do a little toothbrushing, Nicole? Let's do it kind of towards the camera if we can. So again, Nicole's gonna offer up the toothbrush. If he goes for toothbrush, then we're going to just get a little toothbrush in. Let's start nice and easy. Yes, there's a little action going on over there, so high rate of reinforcement. Since there's some more distraction, give him the chance to re-engage if he wants to. He's like, yeah, I'll do some more toothbrushing. You can brush my teeth, McCall. If you are working on grooming or new behavior and you're really teaching with somebody else, you want to start all the way over at the beginning. McCall's already done that a few times, so she can start a little further out. But the really first step would be him nosing it, and then like 1 second of brushing, and then yes. And then reinforcement. That's how I first taught it. And remember, he has a lot of positive associations, and that's part of why you could go so fast. If you're only doing this to teach your animal to have their teeth brushed, and they haven't had those associations already learned the game, it could take a lot longer, and you may just need to build up just getting touched by just touching the toothbrush, getting touched by the toothbrush, and then very, very easy. You think you need a couple more treats for that one? Okay, snack.
There's action and wind.
Yeah, he's like, I think I need a little more snack. Okay, leave it, please. He's like, hold on.
Hey, friendo.
Another thing, can I just show you something real quick? Is you can, instead of like going to, you can just hold it where they can get to it, and the moment they lip, yes, you can mark and reinforce for that, because that's a nice build up towards the actual toothbrushing. Remember, you don't need to go from 0 to 90. Just any sort of playing with it, yes, can be something you reinforce early on, then you can shape to it. And the same thing goes with like petting. You can do permission, okay? And then just have a hand somewhere, and if they happen to move towards it, he's like, I gotta check everything out. Yes, see that? Nice and easy. You can also teach them to have more control and say over grooming, and they can move into it too. So, yes. That can often be, then they feel more in control. Having control is a good, yes, move for building enjoyment and actually like seeking out behaviors. Yes, are you petting yourself? Yes. And like if you have a dog who does that, they've just taught themselves to do that already for fun. Oh, I do see some wild horses up there too. What a day for wildlife at Dunrovin. Some wild horses hiding up in those trees. Huh, those your friends? Do you talk to them sometimes, ever? You say, hey, come down here, we got a bunch of hay. Living's pretty nice. Or do you say, I want to come up there and we can run around the woods together. Would you like to go run around the woods, Canner?
Hey, babe, take a walk on the wild side.
Yeah.
Oh, he really likes getting his molars there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just getting up in there, huh? Yeah, get all that brushing. Yes, that's really good. Well, do you have anything to add to grooming, McCall? Or anything come up? I think that's my quick lesson. You know, a horse who pets used to be just terrified of humans. Can I see this foot? People thought he was going to have to be put down because he backed up a little bit, so I'm just going to let him re-engage. Yes. Because he was just so unmanageable, these are the ways that we got him back, or got him to the point where he was comfortable. Can we do ears? You should show off your ears, too. You don't know? All right, we'll try it. Ears are a hard one for a lot of horses. Yes. It's like, one more ears? And sometimes, this is probably one of the hardest ones for him. Yes. He's like very casually dropping his head, like, look, I'm relaxing. Mm-hmm. The other one that we like to do now is hugs. Will you take that? Can I do a hugs? Hugs can be a little bit harder sometimes, too. Yes. So, just leaning in, and then he drops his head. And he was a little bit nervous of it last week when I was here, so I'm not doing the full behavior. More hugs? Okay. Yes. You're so hefty. You're a hefty hugger. Can you do it like this? Hugs? Yes. That's a big head you got there. I don't know how you hold it up all day long. I couldn't do it. Yes. cool.
He's very good, too, about showing you where he wants to be petted.
Yeah.
Like if you're brushing his side and he suddenly swings his butt around, he frequently just has an itchy hawk or something.
Yeah, and as soon as he realized he could, yes, it's all right. A little bit of wind startling him up a little bit. As soon as he realized he could get like itched that way, and then it led to, seems a little bit nervous or something. Yes. That he could say what he wanted to get petted. He got much more excited about it. But it took a lot to get him comfortable with. That's me walking up and him just actually, let's wait for him to relax a little bit. Him actually being okay with me being back here without getting all tense. And another thing that I also did start selectively reinforcing for was just anytime he had dropped his head. He's kind of chewing now, but yes. Would you like more pets? He says, I want more foods. Give me some more of the good stuff. You relax? We clean up. He's got a little bit of butt stiff. Shh. He's like, nah, that just feels good. He often does like walk right up to where he wants to get a scratch too, like McCall was saying. Yeah, yes. There, I was marking for just that heavy breath. Here, good guy. And then another thing too that we work on sometimes is walking and doing it. But I think that's pretty good for today. Thanks for being a good demonstrator, Canner. You did a great job. Oh, is that an itchy spot? Yeah. You want to take a bow for everybody? We can set you up. You got a little something here I should probably clean up for you real quick. Can't tell what's going on. Some eggs or something gross. It's like maybe some fly eggs.
Yes.
Will you keep clicking treating him?
Can you relax?
No. Scab.
Thinking about it? Yes.
I think it's just a scab, actually. It's a funky little scabby. Probably feels good to get it all itched out.
Yes. I think he likes the, yes, the model of doesn't have to have the pets interrupted to get treated.
Yeah, he's a big fan of that.
Yes.
Let's just get all the scab out real quick. It's just more of it hiding out lower and lower.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that's a good bow. All right, he says, I'm done. We got a bow. So I'm just going to, you want to head that way and we're going to bow for everybody and then call it a day. Went a little long. Whoa. It's like...
I know who has the treat bucket.
Yeah, here, I'll take that. It's like, I know who's been treating me recently. Come this way. Oh, you got an itch there? Yes. There we go. All right, well, thanks everybody for tuning in. Whoa. It's like, don't forget to scratch down here, Mackenzie.
Ooh, I think that's the spot.
Take a bow. Yes. Good demonstration. A big thank you to James for running the cams. Thanks to McCall for coming out. Thanks to Canner for being such a sweetheart. Yes. Thanks to all you for tuning in. Big thank you to the ranch hands for helping make it all go, and Suzanne for, making the whole ship go. See if you can see those wild horses up on the hillside, and those eagles are still hanging out. And a big thank you to Celia for helping us get the word out, and to all of you for tuning in. Be sure and check out the rebroadcast tomorrow. If you have any questions, leave them on you can go ahead and leave them on that forum that we have up. And we'll rebroadcast tomorrow at 1 p.m., I do believe. And yeah, thanks again. We'll see you next Sunday. Bye.
Good afternoon, everyone, from Dunrovin Ranch in Lolo, Montana. I'm delighted to have once again with us Dr. Ann Perkins. She's the Professor Emeriti of Anthrozoology from Carroll College. Hi, Ann.
Hi, Suzanne. Good to see you again.
Good to see you again. We've switched up topics on Ann. Her program at Carroll College in Anthrozoology had two tracks, basically, an equine track and a canine track. Is that not correct, Ann?
That's true, yes. That's exactly true.
Yeah. And so we've been talking about horses as human helpers and healers. So now we're going to switch our focus to dogs, to canines, something that almost everybody knows something about, much more ubiquitous than horses in our lives at this time in our civilization. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. And again, like last week, when Ann wants to advance the slide, she's going to say next, and I'm going to do it. So bear with us. This is the best way we can get with our technology, as I explained before. Ann lives in a wonderful place, but it's a little bit of in a shadow when it comes to internet. So we're making the best with what everybody has. So here we go. I'm going to share my screen. Oh, James, you need to enable me to share my screen. Let me try again. James, can you enable me to share the screen? Is James asleep at the wheel? That would be unusual. Let me get him on the
You're ready to go.
All right. Thank you, James, very much. Okay. All right. Here we go.
All right. So I wouldn't. Okay, Suzanne, can you see me if I go like that?
Yes, I can. Yep.
Okay, so I can just go. I can just signal you like that, and all right.
Yep.
I was delighted when Suzanne asked me this topic. It's been a long time since I've done this. I was primarily responsible for the horse component of the program, but I'm passionate about the dog program, and I was delighted to get up to speed on this. So let's talk about dog cats a little bit. Even beyond that, I want to spend most of this on our relationship with dogs in terms of how much work they do for us and how they support us as working partners and not just family members. So let's start with, go ahead, Suzanne. First, the thing I wanted to say that we do have an incredibly long history with dogs, that they are considered the first animal that humans domesticated. First, some of them is 16,000 years old, compared to the horseman that was only about 6,000. And they were considered the first animal domesticated. Go. Now, all dogs, every single dog that we have that, a pet or working for us now, is actually a descendant from wolves. They are not from coyotes or fox like Darwin thought and other people thought. But now that we have really modern genetics, we know that all of our domestic dogs are descendants from wolves. And what's interesting about that is they differ from fox and coyotes in these ways, in that they're highly social animals. They love each other. They live in family groups called packs, and these packs have strong hierarchical in nature. In other words, there's the mom, dad dog, or the lead female, and then the pups, and the pups even hierarchical based on age. Those packs are highly successful for survival. Next slide. But what's interesting, if you look at humans, we are highly social. We live in groups with real strong bonds, and we're hierarchical with moms and dads and the kids rotating down through the group. So how we exist as families and how our ancestors exist as families is very, very similar to how the wolf pack lived. And that's why we know that when the dogs were domesticated, they came to a situation that they were already highly genetically prepared to be in. Just like this, that this is my family, this is my group, and here I am in the layer. I'm not up there. It's mom and dad, and then it's the kids, and then it's me, and I'm perfectly happy in that situation. That's what we domesticated, and they were highly to be like that. Next slide. So during this long history, we were collectively them and picked out the qualities that we liked best. I mean, being aggressive or not bonding well with family members, you were out. And in the process of doing this, we altered their bodies so much. I mean, the dog has been the most plastic animal in terms of changing through selective breeding than any species. In fact, we don't even know that they're the same species. I mean, these are both the same species, but it's hard to believe. In order to the same species, you have to be able to breed with the same member of your group. You have to breed, and you have to produce a viable offspring. So technically, you can't breed a Great Dane and a Chihuahua. We can still have viable offspring if we do it all artificially. If you can't work the other way around. The female will die carrying pups that big. So, and even so, we wouldn't suggest you'd even try that because it would be a real anomaly. And yet they're the same species. There's no other domestic animal that has mutated and changed this much. Although we have many horses, we have little miniatures of the same animal in animals that is just selecting for the dwarf gene. But we've done way more than just dwarf them. We've made all kinds of animals. All right, so dogs you can train a dog to help you hunt. Oh my gosh, what an advantage that is to our ancestors. And today, dogs are incredibly bonded to their hunting partners and their family members, and that's continued throughout. Dogs are specifically bred for this purpose. But they've also done all kinds of other work. Let's just start with search and rescue, and then say, okay, the military is using dogs to support them in all of their efforts. They work as teams, and there's a famous capture bin Laden. But another industry that's incredibly big now, growing, and has all kinds of growing pains is the service dog industry. So one of the ones that I was very much involved in, one of my favorite breeds, is the dogs that work with livestock. So these dogs, there's two kinds of livestock dogs. That's dogs that guard the sheep, that are big, with the Pyrenees or the Akbash, and their job is to hang out, feed the sheep, and help protect from predators. The other ones are dogs like border collies and Aussie cattle, dogs for cattle. You could say a flock of sheep and you take them out in open range, and they are dogs will grab them and bring them back. And if you see sheep try to watch these animals work, they are really amazing. And without the help of a border collie, it would be impossible to herd sheep on open rangeland, or I should say, a working sheep. It really would be impossible to manage them on an open rangeland as we do. And yet, look how different their job is than the dogs that pull the sleds, that pull, that are racing and pulling sleds. These dogs love to work. They love to pull, and they're completely different from the other dogs, but we've selected for that specific for that specific purpose. Next slide. She is now my daughter-in-law, and the Labrador Retriever in this picture was one of the first graduates of the Carroll College program. Mackenzie got a job with Working Dogs for Conservation. It's an international organization that's based out of Bozeman at this point in time. And they do work to help support the scouts that are trying to protect wildlife from poaching and from selling wildlife products. So that's a great idea to have dogs do that. But the people in Zambia who needed help with this are not doctors. So training dogs and sending them to Zambia and say, here you go, here's your dog. Now use it to find ivory or to find explosives or whatever it is. Those people, dogs are not a part of their culture like they are in the United States. They were unfamiliar with how to work with dogs and to go down there with the dog. Now, her job was not to be the handler. She was not to be the handler. She was to train future handlers and teams. So, and that was very difficult because the culture was different. She said finding people that were even interested and then remotely qualified to partner with dogs was quite an experience. But Rupert was able to partner with a new person, find a new person, and under Mackenzie's leadership, he made one of the biggest ivory busts since the start of use of dogs. And now they're using more dogs, and they're finding, contraband ivory, and they're finding explosives. How do they do it? Well, they do it with their sniffer. They can smell. They can
Okay, and she's now back in the Helena area. Is that correct?
Yes. She was in Zambia for a while and worked for Working Dogs, but she decided to marry my son, and we decided we're in Africa a while. They decided they liked Montana much better. So Mackenzie had some big decisions to make because she loved her job in Africa and she was very good at it. So my son Kyle Perkins and Mackenzie sat down and made a life plan, and they decided it started out as a boarding facility. It went into providing training for owners, and then it opened up into a doggy daycare business. And now they're doing all three. They're doing have a very successful doggy daycare business in Helena. So I'm very proud of them.
Yeah, well, we'd love to connect with them at some point if they're willing to show us their business and
sure.
involved. That would really be fun if that's possible. I'll harangue you about that later. Thank you.
That's a great idea, and I'll send her a link to this talk so she'll know. Okay, I thought it was so exciting when I was preparing for this talk to find out that we now have COVID detection dogs. That these dogs can detect a COVID positive person. And again, the reason they can do it is because their ability to smell is probably 100,000 times more efficient than ours. They can detect the tiniest little things, and they can do it really fast. So once you know how to train a dog to smell something, it really doesn't matter what it is. It's the same process. So at the Alfort Veterinary School in France, started doing this research in March. And I think they published this paper just this last December. They collected sweat on the underarm of 177 people. Some of them were infected and some not, according to laboratory tests. And they took the sweat samples, these little cotton swabs, and they put it in cone-like things, and the dog will go around, and when it smells like COVID positive, it sits to mark it. So the dog smelled the samples, and when they sat, they were telling you, I can smell COVID in this sample. Next slide. And according to the researchers, the dogs were correct 76 to 100% of the time, identifying positive infections. That was compared to what the labs found. And they were 92 to 99% effective, saying, no, this does not have COVID. But what's interesting, that there's been a report out that 2 dogs said that this person had COVID. 2 different dogs said that this person had COVID, yet the lab tests were negative. So that means they had a false positive. But after they published the paper, and subsequently, those 2 people the dog said were positive actually they came down, and the lab test demonstrated they were positive later. And that is not statistically significant, but it implies that the dogs can detect this asymptomatic person even before the labs can. And in fact, when they're sniffing the samples, they said that they could do it in less than a second, know whether or not it was positive or negative. So this is really remarkable. And think how great it would be if we could put dogs in different places to help us know about symptoms. So
this is really significant, Anne, because if you read about what's happening with the variants, and that we are going to be continually fighting COVID for years into the future because of its mutations, having a dog like this at schools or at airports or any place where people are congregating would just be a huge opener to society if you could have something that was that quick and that effective at detecting it.
Suzanne, this is exactly what drove to degrees in dogs. See, I mean, it takes a lot of dogs to train these dogs, and not different dogs. So got not that are going to significantly understanding how valuable dogs are as detectors.
Yeah.
Well, in the same thing. Their setup is a little different. They start a program. The money keeps to watch NBA basketball are being scent detected by COVID trained dogs.
Wow.
And the question is, I just wish I knew, I wish I tried to get the answer before this talk, is, are there going to be COVID detection dogs at the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
This coming weekend. And it's possible. There's probably not very many of them, but it's possible. And the Super Bowl, as it's been played throughout the country and all of its locations, they've been using explosive detection dogs just as a safety precaution, using explosion detective dogs. They're located in many police departments and in federal agencies, and so they can use dogs to seek for bomb. But so it's not a big step for the NBA and the football leagues to engage in COVID. That's exactly where you went, Suzanne. It's like, we need them at all these locations, everywhere where it could be super spread down airports or whatever. They're using it at airports now in Europe.
Well, let me ask you this, Anne. Can dogs be taught to differentiate among a variety of things? could you have one dog at an airport that could smell explosives or COVID or any of the other kinds of things, animal parts, wildlife, contraband. So you could have one dog that could basically give you a profile of everybody who comes through. Is that possible?
Yes. So what they learn is the concept. To learn, I mean, once a dog has been trained for a specific scent, then learning a new scent comes easier and easier. And you can have multiple scents on dogs. It's interesting that in the first study in France, when they were picking the dogs to train to COVID, they used 3 dogs that were already trained on explosives, 2 dogs that had been used in hospitals for collecting, for detecting colon cancer, and 1 dog that was used for search and rescue. So when they began the COVID research, they used dogs that already understood the game. They already knew, okay, I got to learn a new scent here. It was interesting that they didn't use drug detection dogs, because drug dogs, you think, that would be similar, and they can detect. Drug dogs are looking for contraband drugs, but they were afraid that if any human had used things, the dog would be had false positives. So through no fault of their own, detecting things it had already been trained for.
Wow, this is fascinating. Next slide.
Oh, yeah, okay. Just what we're going to move into the whole area of service dogs. So go ahead and go to the next slide. But, so this is an area that I was particularly interested in when I started the Anthrozo program. It's service to people with disabilities, emotional support dogs, and therapeutic dogs. All of these are kind of under the same rubric, that they're really helping people. But they now have legal definitions and very specific rules that define them, as opposed to this pet dog that happened to be the pet of a person that had a disability turns out to be real supportive. And over time, those things that the pet dogs were doing evolved into nonprofit organizations of dogs specifically trained to support. So it's kind of an evolution from pets to working dogs. And now they're defined legally. So service dogs, when we call them a service dog, it's defined by a legislative from the American with Disabilities Act. All service dogs are defined by that specific definition. And so basically, it's a service dog must be individually trained to do very specific tasks. And those tasks have to be directly related to supporting the person's disability. And in addition to that, they have to be inherently well managed. They're privileged about going into any place that is public. Service dogs, by law, from the definition of the American with Disabilities Act, are allowed to accompany their person to any place where the public can go. And it's clear that they're working dogs and not pets. And it's clear that they have to be unobtrusive and well-mannered. So you can have service dogs that are for diabetic alert, for seizure alert, epilepsy, autism, migraine, strokes, heart disease, and PTSD. And these are examples. So the service dog industry evolved out of, first for the blind, seeing eye and guide dogs, then for people in wheelchairs, and now has grown into service dogs for all of these orders and more. Next slide. Okay, so the laws that regulate this, the real thing that is concerning is the notion that it allows dogs to accompany their owner to any facility. And this means hospitals, theaters, restaurants, stores. There's only a few exceptions where service dogs are not allowed. And I was just looking them up to find out. And it turns out that it's okay to say that they can't go in an operating room. But they are allowed in the room right outside of that operating room. They're allowed in places that you would think no dogs would be able to go. Hospital stores, grocery stores, all of that. Service dogs are allowed. But the person and the person that has a service dog is not required to disclose their disability. And they do not have to demonstrate that the dog can do its specialized training. So next slide.
Can I ask you a question?
Oh, go ahead and ask. Yeah.
Okay, the controversy over the last few years about comfort dogs on airplanes. Now, I assume that the laws regarding service dogs were passed before comfort dogs or comfort animals. Actually, I mean, somebody tried to take a peacock on board, I guess, became such an issue on airplanes. And have those laws been modified because of these recent issues regarding comfort animals?
Yes, they have. They just recently passed a law that says that the airlines they can ask about disability. I don't have the exact law yet, but they just in last year in 2020, you can't have peacocks and you can't have turkeys and you can't have dogs. And that would be impeccably mannered, and they have to, I think they even have to have them proof. But aside from the airlines, there's only two questions that a proprietor of a business or owner of a business can ask, and that is somebody walking with a dog. They're not required to have any ID on them about that. They're not required to wear vests or have ID tags, and the person with the disabilities does not have to disclose what their disability is. But if they are legal, you can say, "Is that a service dog?" Yes, is that a service dog? And the proprietor can say, "What specifically does it do? I mean, does it turn lights on and off, or when other people?" Like they have to say, what is the specific task with the dog, and is it a service dog? And the thing that owners are afraid of, they don't understand, is if the dog is in any way disruptive or pays they'd be asked. So if someone says this is a service dog and barks, even one bark, you're out. I'm sorry, that dog is not trained enough. And maybe you may be calling it a service dog, but unless it behaves like a service dog, because under the law, service dogs are working. They are working. They should be never being able to. To that. And there are these disabilities, psychiatric and mental health disorders. And when people are using these dogs, especially the mental health psychiatric, are those places? Well, they have the emotional support dog. And an emotional support dog has to be prescribed by a doctor or a licensed therapist. That means they're a licensed counselor, and that person with the disability has a mental health issue. That dog provided companionship with that person with that disability. Next slide. Okay, so if you saw this dog and it was wearing a vest and said it was an emotional support dog, does that mean that it has the same privileges as a dog all the services. And you would ask, does we're happy? Is the dog as what that is okay. If the only role of the wait, too fast.
Go back.
Yeah. If the only role of this dog is that it provides emotional support and it's not specifically trained for task, it is not allowed in public places. And that is very difficult. This is where the problem is. So in other words, train for a specific task. Let me give you an example of where it's problematic. If you say, I'm really anxious because I'm a college student and I'm to train specifically to sit in my lap so that I can take this exam. Therefore, it's an emotional support dog, and I should be allowed to take it to any classroom and do whatever I want with this dog. So you can see that that's a slippery slope. It is not a service dog, and you do not have to provide that accommodation. One, it's not a won't make the bud or has to go under the chair during the exam or whatever it is. And number two, it has to be prescribed by a licensed therapist or a counselor or a doctor that this person has this disorder, and this is absolutely will help. So that's what becomes problematic. Emotional support dogs are service dogs if they really do make a difference for an invisible disease. But the bottom line is that it has to be specifically trained and it has to be impeccably trained. So you can ask any emotional support dog to leave if it's yappy or disruptive or the person with a disability is not under complete control and the person with the disability is not behaving appropriately with that dog. Very controversial. Okay.
If I understood you correctly, Anne, as a public place, I can ask two questions. Is it a service dog? And what is it trained to do? But there's no certification. Is that correct? So there's no certification.
Yes, that's correct.
That's like a little bit of a loophole. Yeah.
Well, it's a loophole, but what I mean, I don't understand why that happened, but you can go online and order a vest and an ID tag without any oversight. I did that recently. I mean, yeah, I have a border collie and I have headaches or whatever it is. And you just say a few things and for $150 or it's different for different agencies, they'll send you a tag and an ID and say you're registered with us and they keep a register and then you have a dog in the vest, period. And you can go around counterfeiting, or plagiarizing that you are disabled. So currently, and I don't know if that's the reason, that's why, number one, people with disabilities don't want to expose that. They don't want to say that, I have seizure disorders or I am diabetic or whatever it is. So people with disabilities ask that they not have to prove that to anybody. And on behalf of the people with, we didn't want that to be public. The answer right now is it's all in how trained the dog is. Truly, the dog is a service animal, and you can tell by that at this point, you should get out of here. If you are not behaving with the same kind of standards that guide dogs and service dogs that have been trained by or have been around for a long, long time, then the owner would. They might threaten that they're going to take you to court because they show this ID, but those ID are of no value and they're not legally, they don't mean anything. They don't mean anything. People are using those to abuse, to get their pets, and And owners of businesses are worried that they're going to get sued or suffer, that they're going to be in violation of the ADA laws. But the validation with a vest, a tag, or anything else is meaningless. If you ask the person, is that a service dog? And if they say it is, and it's a lie, they can be fined. There's 19 states now that have fines for lying about being a service dog. And again, it has to be specifically trained for a specific disability, and the dog has to do certain tasks. So if they can't demonstrate that and they say it is a dog, they're in trouble.
Can I ask another question, Anne?
Oh, yeah.
I have seen instances of trained miniature horses as service animals. And I've always read that one of the reasons that they look to trained miniature horses is they have a longer longevity than dogs do. They can live for up to 30 years, for that matter, but as guide animals, etc. And I assume that all the same requirements apply. So if somebody were to come up to Dunrovin with a service miniature horse, I would ask the same questions. Is that correct?
I believe that's true. Although this is a moving target. I didn't check on that right before I gave this talk, but it's being debated all the time. Only recently, only within the past year, I think in late 2019, did they start saying, we're not going to call all these other animals service animals, the turkeys and the tarantulas and the guinea pigs and all that. No. Right now, the service dogs are service dogs. And I think there may have been an exception for that reason, but I'll have to check in on those minis. There was also some religious reasons related to, I had religious groups that don't allow dogs in their house or something like that. I'm not sure. But there were some exceptions for mini horses for a while, but I don't think they're allowed on planes.
Yeah, it makes sense. I was just curious.
Yeah. Well, I think that I wanted to include this slide because there has been significant abuse of the privilege that to have that privilege was looking at why do we ban pets? Like, why are pets allowed in grocery stores and restaurants and all that? And it's because people have said people are more than animals. People can have phobias and allergies, and plus they stink and they're disruptive. And so when they were looking at making these service dog with the ability to participate in life fully. And that really has happened. Some people with specific disabilities are much more able to participate fully in our society. So if you're annoyed with animals, or you're afraid of them, or you get a stuffy or nose or something, that's minor compared to not being able to have a guide dog or to have a wheelchair and participate more fully. And this was the argument that set ADA into motion. So I want to avoid talking about all these other dogs that are incredibly therapeutic and helpful, but are not service dogs. So we know that being with humans provides all kinds of comfort and support, but this doesn't require specialized training. I mean, you just walk down the street with a pet dog pulling your dog that's with you all the time is therapeutic and does help and is great. But the different orders, so these are not service dogs, and putting a vest around them, and saying, I just feel so better. We know that they're health promoting. So no, but some states are even allowing these, what we call emotional support dogs, to go into public accommodations because they're not, like I said, it's like sitting on their lap gives somebody comfort, but that's not going to count as, you don't have to train your dog to sit on your lap. They'll sit on your lap. They'll sit on your lap if you ask them to. So that's not the same. Now, this is interesting. There are new laws covering some of these comfort and therapeutic dogs, the ones that just make people happier. And it's called the Fair Housing Act. I think I got a date on this. Let me see if Fair Housing Act. It's been revised and updated as of January 2020. So what this means is if you have a disability, anxiety, depression, something like that, and your dog isn't specifically trained with the task, but you can't live without your dog, and your dog makes it significantly better for you to have this dog as part of your family or a place that pets allow. You can say, it's not a service dog, it's a pet. And this act now covers colleges and universities. So if you're a student going off to school and you couldn't make it if you didn't have your dog with you, I mean, it would be so overwhelmingly stressful and you have problems, and having this dog with you could make a difference, then the college dormitories are obligated to make accommodations for you to be with that pet. Go ahead.
And again, I would assume that there are restrictions in terms of the dog's behavior, or
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What about a cat? Could it be a cat instead of a dog?
I think so.
Yeah. Cats are more problematic. I have here at Dunrovin, I don't allow cats because so many people.
That's true. Cat allergies are really problematic, and I think there's been some students at our college that came with different animals like guinea pigs and goldfish. And one of the things is these animals are not allowed to cross over into what's called, service animals. They may be certified for the Fair Housing Act to be a comfort animal, or they may be called an emotional support animal, but you can't stick a vest on it and go into the classroom with it. Or you can't go into the grocery store or anything else like that. They're not allowed to do that. And it doesn't mean that they're really specifically well-mannered and trained. It means that as a family member to you, as a person with a mental health or disability problem, we're going to try to make reasonable accommodations. But if it barks or destroys the property or doesn't work out, then the proprietors or owners are certainly allowed to evict them. So again, the standards are really important. Okay, so this kind of leads up to some of your needs. Nothing. There's no such thing as a certified service dog. It's only defined by its ability to perform that and by the disability of the person. So several nonprofit organizations are certifying therapy dogs, but that's a different. Okay, so the standards for certified dogs are, or the standards for these service dogs, and there's, so that that's okay. I mean, we've covered all this. What we need to say is that, let's go to the next slide. Therapy dogs are certified by different organizations, and they're very different from service dogs or emotional support dogs. Therapy dogs are owned by volunteers. They're really well trained, and if they're certified by organizations. They're different. There are many different therapy dog organizations that say, we say under our standards, this dog, when handled by their owner, who is a volunteer, can go into hospitals, nursing homes, libraries, and schools. They are not privileged by law to do that. They are welcomed by the proprietors. The hospitals may say, we could use a therapy dog in our children's, section, or I have an old elderly patient who would like to see a dog. They go in with the dog handler. The dog handler loves up on the person. That provides health, well-being, gratification, satisfaction, and it's lovely. There are organizations that take dogs into libraries and read to children. And one of our dogs at Carroll College was actually placed at a school. It's a school support therapy dog, belongs to the counselor, And that counselor uses it throughout the school to support the children that are having problems. So these are therapy dogs, not service dogs. And the nonprofit organizations are providing oversight for their services. One of the ways the nonprofits are doing it, not the laws, but the nonprofits, is that they can provide insurance for people who want to have a, quote, certified dog, so that if anything should happen because of that dog, if they are certified by an organization, they have liability coverage. And that's how they're, I would say, managing and providing oversight for this whole therapy dog industry. But it's hardly an industry because all the people who participate are volunteers.
Interesting.
Next
Very
slide. Yeah. Well, let's not forget our pets. Last but not least, I said beyond pets, but I want to talk about our pets. We'll just do a few slides here. This is my colleague, Dr. Marie Southers, and she is now the director of the anthrozoology program at Carroll College. And that is her beloved dog, who is now, I think, 16 years old, been at Carroll College since she got there. In addition to all, there's, agility and obedience, and these kinds of competitions are popular and are fun and lucrative. Next slide. I got this statistic because I was just curious how important pets were in terms of the industry. And according to the National Pet Owners Association, 67% of all households own pets. That's 85 million. So that Carroll call and find out what we were doing seriously, or they do a lot in terms of understanding how to pass the good manners test to be able to be out in public at the standards we wanted. But the dog did accurately detect whenever the client's blood glucose levels got seriously low, would wake him up out of a coma, promised to be there. And because of that, he was able to move out from living with his parents. The dog lived with him more like a support dog, but it never met the standards of could go into the grocery store. Well, it was like a really lovely, energetic, Labrador retriever, and it didn't meet the standards of being in public places, but it certainly met the standard of having a specific task. Then I've talked about the African contraband that Ruger did with McKinsey. Autistic children can tend to walk off with an autistic child, and the dog was the kid. I mean, we can't find her. All they is not well enough trained to take that dog into the grocery stores or to the restaurant, all those kinds of things. But it's with Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. And if you've ever driven past where I live on Highway 12, it says you need these boats to stop over because we want to know if there are species that are growing on the bottom of boats and invading our public waters. And so they're destroying our public waters. And so they've trained these dogs, trained like a military dog. It doesn't have very many other skills except for it's just a great, and that means that they qualify to be with, that's almost the standard thing, shelter dogs, research on shelter dogs, and taking those dogs and putting them with students, taking them out, dream that they would get out of this COVID pandemic. So with that, Suzanne, I'll ask if there's any more questions.
Well, first of all, Anne, this was really exciting. I want to thank you for this. We are going to be having some people come out with their service dogs and some trainers, including somebody from Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks with a Karelian bear dog. And you've heard about them, of course. But you've really primed the pump for the kinds of questions I'm going to ask them and the things I'm going to ask them to demonstrate. So I have a few questions, though, beyond that, Anne. It seems like spent animals have such a huge potential and that they're underutilized. I mean, I don't see them doing things that I think they ought to be doing, like the zebra mussels on boats at Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. It seems to me that that would be worth the amount of money to train a cadre of dogs to stiff boats as they came through the state, because have been the impediments to a more robust industry for scent dogs. What is the limiting factor?
Great question. One of the So I found from the nonprofit organizations when I was researching this with guide dogs for the blind and even hearing dogs and other, the while expensive to